Let's go. Hello and welcome to the Pétanque Show with me, David Plumoff. Today's guest is one of the game's most likeable and lovable characters, Ben Treend. Ben has been playing the game for over 35 years. Is that right, Ben? 35 years nearly? It's got to be,
over 35, yeah.
Over 35 years. He's taken a short break of about 4 years, but he's back to play the game he loves. So without further ado, let's get Trendy onto it. So Trendy, how are you?
I'm all good, thank you.
Good. Good to see you. Good to see you. Right then, let's get going. I think this is the interview everyone's been wanting to see. I've had loads of people message me saying, "Oh, we're looking forward to seeing Trendy." So don't be boring, all right?
Okay, all right.
So let's start then. Let's get to know you a bit, because not everyone will know you. Most people know you through social media, but the younger generation have probably never seen you play, don't know what you're about, what you've done, and things like that. So how did you start playing the game and how did you get involved in the game?
Yeah, my mum and dad have got heavy connections to France, always gone there since they were teenagers. Obviously, I used to go along with them. I think they saw Pétanque being played a few times while they were over there and it interested them. My dad was actually quite a keen golfer, but was looking for a sport, I think, that could involve mum because mum had no interest in golf. And literally 1982, they stumbled across people playing down at the Garrison Church in Old Portsmouth, which was the Garrison Club then. And they were hooked immediately, started going along, practicing, and then they were playing. So I guess that was 1982, then to 83. They used to start competitions and drag me all around the place, going to them. Obviously, Southern Region had a lot of events in those days. Every single Sunday from March till October, November, there would be a competition. And I was dragged all over the places to go along, obviously, as a young kid, 8 years old, 7, 8 years old. And after 2 years of being dragged along and mucking about for the day and bothering them for pocket money, I decided, why not throw a ball or two? And my first competition was at the Botley Grange Hotel, and there was a scratch team being made up, which was May Britt, who was a legend of Southern Region, who lots of the older players will remember fondly. And another lad who was the son of Lynn Cheriton, and Martin Cheriton's his stepdad, who Lynn played with my mum. We just made a scratch team on the day. I guess, must have been about 1988. So I would have been about 12 maybe. It might have been earlier. It might have been about 87. And we won the spoon, and I was hooked. We actually did all right. From then on, I was playing every Sunday from then on.
It is one of them games where, because I know from myself, from when I first picked up a ball, it does hook you. It is such a great game to play. I don't think people realise just how addictive and competitive it is when they mock you for playing such a game. And then when they have a go, they enjoy it. And I don't know if that's the same with you, watching your mum and dad, and then playing the game. Now, that's cool. Can you remember the first tournament you won, or the best you ever done in a tournament? How old were you?
I don't know whether I'm going to start crossing into questions you've got coming up, but
that's all right. That's fine.
I don't actually remember when I sort of took that step up from just going along and playing to getting a sort of a settled team and starting to play well. I must have been playing at a reasonable level, because I think it was 1990, so I was 15. Then the youth game was pretty non-existent, so there was no youth setup.
No.
If you were a good kid, you usually played with adults, and that's how you got recognised. And the youth sort of came in at the back end of my time playing at a good level, and I was already playing with very good regional level, if not better players in established teams. And my drive then, because there wasn't an age limit on the nationals and going for qualification for stuff, so I just stayed in that. Never really got a good kids team.
Just to stop you there, do you think then the junior setup that came after, like you said, it come eventually, do you think it was better for the game, or do you think just playing straight away with adults set you up better?
It's hard to say, isn't it? We've had this debate before. I always harp on about the old days and how I feel it was harder to qualify in those days in the country, etc. Don't get me wrong, it's still very hard to qualify now, but there just seemed to be more, you'd have events with 200 teams at them, and you could probably pick 30 teams that were at top level. Whereas these days, you're looking at maybe 8 to 10 teams. You think they're a team that could do it. I'm not, for various reasons, the membership dropped because of various other, modern life, etc., and other interests have come along, and I do get it. But it was definitely, for me, I feel, a good learning ground to play adults. I don't know, because I didn't do the sort of junior setup. So I guess when I've watched it, the only time I've really managed to spend a lot of time watching junior setup is the regionals, when all the junior teams are playing each other.
Yeah.
And I think it's great to watch. There's a camaraderie there, and there's obviously a lot of, rivalries, and you can see kids, they want to beat other kids, and you've got all the kid emotions there as well, getting the maturity when you lose, when to win graciously and not lose your cool. I mean, people like Ashley Jameson, I remember as a as a junior, and Jamie Lewis. I mean, it was hot stuff. They've obviously changed over here. Well, Ashley has to a little bit, but Jamie is a different person to the lad I remember as a juvenile player. Because he used to lose it. I think he knows he'll accept that as well.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, I think also when there's that junior vibe, I know through my experience being brought up like now with obviously Scott Ashby, Dean Ashby, all the other, I come up with them, and I feel like you build a really strong bridge with them, as well as rivalry and competition. You build that. It's very much a bond there, and regardless if we all get on like amazing mates, it's something that we all like come up together. And maybe in your day, because you were thrown straight into playing with adults, you didn't really have that. You just went straight in. You were made to play, and you had to get good quick. Otherwise, the adults won't want to play with you. So, there's pros and cons to both sides of it, isn't there? To be fair.
Yeah, I mean, to go back to your original question, I remember my first year of what I would call a good level of pétanque. And as I said, I can't remember what I was doing before, but I must have been playing well enough. Tom Thompson, who was a very good sub-region player, and Dave Yates, well respected at the time. I think they'd been team 1 and 2 for Southern with Terry Stevens for a couple of years. Terry Stevens was giving up the game effectively. And they came and asked me, and I was sort of shell-shocked. It's like they were recognised as a very good regional team. At the time, the regionals were, on the whole, sort of, especially in the Southern, I feel, were most people's priority, and I thought, and I qualified in my first year playing what I would call good level ball. We qualified, and I went to the Isle of Wight. And from then on, I had a different team pretty much every year. I think most people know I like to chop and change.
We'll get to that.
Yeah, I know. I thought I'd hit a question like that. But it's so yeah, I guess that year I started winning stuff, small comps in the region, or getting good and getting recognised.
Oh, that's good. That is good. So you obviously remember your first time playing in, say, national events, and did you ever it was Grand Prix back then, wasn't it? It was more like you qualify as a team rather than as individuals and then put into a team. Do you remember your early success in that? Did you ever make the final and lose before you got? Because we get onto it. I know you've played in a Worlds, but we get onto that. Do you remember your gradual step in the right direction before you made that leap?
I chased, obviously the ultimate dream was to play for my country, and I chased it quite aggressively. I know it upset some people in the Southern region, which is a region that is very, and rightly so, very proud of their heritage. I think there was an inward feeling that you haven't got to go and travel out the region to achieve what you want to achieve. But deep down, I mean, people will always say you're just sort of blinded by, but I was quite aggressively. I chased every year. I tried to better myself or my team, and with no disrespect to anyone I played with, they were stepping stones, but I didn't view it as a stepping stone. I didn't know when I started playing with them it would be a year. I just wanted to play with better players all the time, and I got to play with some great players. People like Steve Lombard, who I had utter respect for, and was so chuffed to play with, and even if I had a good year, I didn't want to stand still. I wanted to keep, because you look at some players and I think they don't say that. Right, let's go back to probably the one that has changed my thinking is my dad. My dad was a very, very good shooter at one point. I mean, he still is for his age, but he had an opportunity to go and play with Felix and some very, very good players in Norfolk Square. And he said no, because he'd had a very good year in the Grand Prix. He thought he'd go again with Bob and Mum, and they never ever had another season like it. Yeah. And he probably missed his one opportunity to get recognised in that top sort of band of players and maybe step on and play a better level. But he was loyal to the team he was with, and probably in the end, he did. There's no doubt in the late 80s, my dad could have played for the country.
Oh yeah, I know for a fact how good he was. Yeah, playing with him.
But I look back at that and I think I'm never going to miss that opportunity. If I get the opportunity to play with players, and I'm very lucky, I've played with pretty much everyone I'd ever want to play with in the game. There's only a few left that I haven't, that I would. But yeah, and I always saw that move, that team, and it's just luckily it's been justified in my eyes for what I did, what I've achieved. So
yeah, absolutely. So let's get on to it then. So was it you qualified for the 2000 Worlds, wasn't it? Was that your first? I mean, obviously you played North Sea and stuff like that, but that was your first real, know, what I would call the highest level.
Yeah. So I guess mid-90s, I was starting to play some very good ball. And I was team 1 for Southern twice and team 2. I was team 1 twice when we had Ness, Frank and Chris playing, and they were GB 1, and we were beating them to pit them to Southern 1. So I knew I was playing at a good level, but at that point, I nationally, although I was going to Grand Prix, I was playing with my dad. I had a year with Jamie Lewis when we weren't great, and stuff like that. I didn't really get that chance to step up. And then Chris, Allen and Ness and Phil Bradshaw qualified for the Worlds that year, I think, and also obviously by default the North Sea. But it was also a year when Ness was playing with Lisa and Diz in the ladies and had to play in the ladies team. So they needed someone, and totally out of the blue, I got a call from Chris and Phil saying, we want you to come and play in the North Sea with us, which, when you think about how many already national standard established players at that time could have just stepped in, and I hadn't played at that level, I was dead chuffed. And that was a hell of a learning experience. I think that was 97.
Did it improve your game a lot?
100%. In Kenilworth, and it whet my appetite. I wanted more. I wanted to play with good players, and I then moved out of the region for the first time nationally and played with Barry Scott and Marcus Hilton.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what was your team that went to the Worlds then in 2000? What did you?
So that was that. So that was me, Marcus Hilton, pointing, and Paul Bond in the middle. Hell of a year, probably my favourite ever year. Well, it has to be my favourite ever year of Pétanque. A brilliant North Sea in Germany that year, which was fantastic team ethic and camaraderie and bonding, and great play as well. I mean, we fannied a very, very good Dutch team, team 1 in 3 ends, and they were mesmerised. I think me, Paul and Marcus carried 6 ball and it blew them away. That was a great experience, and that really made me want more. And then as the season went on, we were laying second going in, and then once you got the last 8, you came to basically a playoff between the top 2, and Bruno, God bless his soul, Sebastian, Dave Chalkers, God rest his soul, and it was and Michel, another one. Unfortunately, that whole team, but what an amazing team! But they'd been won throughout the season. They were won the year before, and they were amazing. And then we went to Kenilworth for the big day of best of 5. And we went 2-0 down.
You played the same team out of 5 to get to... Oh, really? Okay. Can you just...
Yeah,
what was that then?
So you got to the last 8, and then from the last 8, you got a last 2. And that 2 had a best of 5 day, which was those 4. They were a team of 4. We were just a 3. And we went 2-0 down on the day. And we then, and just to add some extra pressure, the club there at Kenilworth had a twinning with their Belgian twinning club, and that was William van der Beest's team, who at the time was a very top junior. I know he probably didn't push on to be the amazing player, the big thing that they were sort of promising he was going to be, but at that point. So I was aware he was watching. it just added to the pressure and a few people watching as well. But we actually went 2 games down, 2-0. We weren't playing badly, but they, like I say, they were a very good team. And then the third game, the wheels really did fall off. And we went 11-0 down. And I thought, this is it. This is just gutting. We've turned up. We haven't turned up really. We're going to lose 3-0. They're going to go to the Worlds. And I always remember that end because Mark, they threw the kosh dead 10 metres and Chalkers put a ball up, and it was literally 3 inches in front of the kosh. You couldn't script it, and I thought, this we're done here. I think I shot twice. I think I missed twice. Marcus pointed off the terrain and then short. And Bondi just looked at me and he went, well, there you go. I've got nothing else to do. 10 metres. There was now a big crowd watching Van der Beest. It just added all to the drama. Bondi gets in the circle and ball to Kosh, ball to Wood, absolute spot on, smacks it. He turned around and he goes, "We're going to the Worlds." And we won that game. We won that game. We were 11-0 down. We beat them to 11, and we won the last 2 games. I couldn't believe it. I've never had a feeling like it.
I can imagine they went from thinking this is it, and they probably, in some ways, in their head, probably down tools a little bit, thinking, well, we've won it here. Yeah. And then when you come back, it probably gave you all a massive lift by like 20%, and they just couldn't recover from it, and that was it. You guys.
It's just one of those moments where you think you could not script that any other way, and we felt invincible after that. And it showed. We had to battle hard, obviously, to come back and win that game. But then the next 2, we were on fire.
That's good. That's really good. So, where was the Worlds in 2000?
Portugal that year.
Oh, really? Was it outdoors, indoors?
So there were the majority was outdoor, but there was a small indoor sort of. I think it was 4 or 6 pistes where the finals were played, etc. I had a mixed bag there, to be honest. My experience of the Worlds, obviously, I was keen to impress. We took Frank Britt as a chosen 4th, and also we had Dave Owen as our team manager. And I think I possibly at the start, I didn't have a bad game the first game. It was against Canada, who were French speaking. They were good, but we lost. We weren't disgraced, but we lost. And then we lost the next game, and I did start to play. But when you start missing, and we're at that level with people watching, I think my head did go a little bit.
Yeah.
And where I was possibly still young and a little bit sort of headstrong, etc., I think I refused. Not refused. I didn't refuse, but I refused to accept that I probably should sit out initially. And I think in the end they had to say, "Look, I think you need time out." I had a game out. And it was good enough for me to sort of collect my thoughts, and I actually came back in and played quite well after having a game out. But really, I should have recognised it myself and maybe said, "Look, I probably need to come out a bit." But I don't think it would have really changed how it had gone on from then on. We did get into the Coupe des Nations and actually played quite well. We played the Madagascar team, which had been world champions the year before. And we gave them a very good game. I mean, we shot 6 and carried 6 against them. They started the game with complete nonchalance, flicking the kosh.
Yeah, couldn't care less, yeah.
Once we did that, they showed us respect. We actually lost to 11, and it was on a lucky kosh move that we lost. I'm not just saying that. We really could have been. That was easily the highlight. We played well. And unfortunately, when we got to the last 8 of the Cup of Nations, we moved indoors. It was a totally different terrain. Marcus struggled a little bit with the pointing, but we felt had to go with Marcus because we've got the right to get there. And maybe, maybe if we'd had Frank, he might have pointed it different in that game. But we went out to Thailand, he went on to win it, I think. So it wasn't that disgraceful.
No, I suppose, so you must have been, 25 at the time? 24, 25?
2000, yeah, 25, yeah.
Yeah, so I suppose where it was your first time being there, I can relate a little bit from when I went to the Euros. You feel it's not so much naivety, but you feel like you've earned the right to be there and you've earned the right to pull it back. And sometimes in that environment, it's better to do what's best for the team. But you're thinking, I made it here. Why can't I try and turn it around? And that's sometimes that's a problem. But also you learn from it, don't you? You gain that experience from it in later life. So that's what
100%. And what I say is now we are so much better at playing as a four-man team. Then it was quite a foreign concept. Not many teams did it. We brought Frank in obviously as a sub, never played
and
with
he
him
was
as a
the
team.
sub, I bet. Yeah, he was the sub, if that makes sense.
And it was hard to accept. Like I say, we qualified the right to go there, and you're thinking, oh, like I say, I've got here on my own sort of steam. But I think now you wouldn't have those situations. You discuss it, and not certainly the four-man teams that I've been in since. It's worked much better, especially in recent years.
So, did you play Loire while you were there?
No, not there. No.
Where was it? You've said
nearly beat him.
The running joke with me, you and Sean.
Yeah, no, that was at the London comp, the money one. I think it was 2015. We won it that year, or split the winnings in the final. Yeah, over Neil Dobbins and Matt Franks. It was good.
I suppose some of these name drops are pretty awesome, aren't they? When you look back at some of the players that have played over the last, since you started playing regularly, some amazing players you're mentioning. It's a shame that of all the ones you mentioned, some have obviously sadly passed away, but most of them don't even play anymore, do they?
No.
No.
And another name who I promise I won't cry, who I'm so glad I got to play with, was my last year playing, was Lee Jameson.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that. Yeah, absolutely.
In the regionals, what a phenomenal English player, for absolute calm, consistent play. I always wanted to play with him, never had a chance for various reasons. And I've got to play with him it's literally the last time I was thrown any ball competitively was with Lee. And that will go, that first ball I throw, it will go through my head. But what a guy.
What a legend. And he had to put up with Ashley all that time. I love
Ashley too many times. I played with Ashley about 6 times as well, like 6 seasons as well. Bless him, I love him, but you've got to control
phenomenal player when he's on it. That's what I'll say.
For natural talent, if he could ever get his head dead right, I think he's the best English player for natural talent.
He's an incredible player. But anyway, let's move on a little bit then from then. So obviously after the Worlds, what this is sounding like a bit of this is your life at the moment. But after the Worlds, what happened then? Did you play regularly still? I mean, you probably started to think about family, wife.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'd already had 2 children. No, was it 2000? So. Yeah, I'd had 2 children. Caitlin had just been born. So it was starting to pay a little bit of pressure, the constant, because you've got to give it all. If you want to go for it, you've got to be dedicated and give up your time. So it was starting to get hard. But the next year, I remember quite keenly wanting to do it again. I remember Bondi not really being fussed. He sort of felt like he wanted a bit of a break, but I think he also felt like he couldn't let me down because I really wanted to do it. Marcus would have gone either way. And as it turned out, we didn't have the greatest qualifying series, and we came into the last qualifier needing to do a certain set of results and things to happen for us to get in. And as it happened, we played with a sub, Robert from London, because Paul said, we haven't got a chance. I'm not going to, he didn't want to play. It was a long travel. And I said, but it can still happen. And as it happened, we lost the last game to 12. If we'd won it, we would have. Every single thing that I said could happen, happened. The people that had to lose early went, and it was just bizarre. But I think it wasn't meant to be. And from that moment, I thought maybe I need a bit of a break now. I've been properly going for it for a few years. And I did actually take probably about 7 years out, bar the odd appearance in the Interregionals where I got drafted in as a spare player at the end, without playing all year. But I managed to bag about 4.
So really, since 2000, the last 20 years, majority of it's not been playing, you'd say?
On the whole. Obviously, I came back, I think it was 2010, I started playing again. And finished second in the country that year, which amazed me. I thought it's going to take a little... Matt Ebston, Phil Winston and James Lewis as a team of 4. And we definitely could have... That was the second year I was playing. I think I came back and I played 1 year regionally, and then I stepped into that team. No, it was the first year. I'll shut up. It was the first year, and and we were unlucky that day as well. I won't bore you all with the story there, but basically we beat So's team twice in the day, and then because of the reportage, etc., they got through to the final and eventually had to play them a third time. I think we'd beaten them 4 out of 5 times that season. The one time we lost was to go to the Worlds. Yeah. The only good thing about it all was that Worlds never happened because of it was Mauritius, wasn't it? So I don't think they didn't even go because we couldn't get the funds. So, and I'm not sure. I think it got cancelled in the end anyway. But
yeah, and then since then it's just been on and off. And now coming back after 4 years.
Yeah, I think I played for 2015 was my last year.
Okay.
And then I played regionally for another couple of years, and then complete no game.
Yeah, that's true. So let's go on to then. You're a bit of a let's not say journeyman, because that's a bit harsh.
You can say journeyman. You can say
journeyman.
Paul, you can say whatever you want. I've had it all thrown at me.
I still remember the interregionals where we put every region shirt on you while you were sound. That was amazing. That was amazing. But yeah, so you are a bit of a journeyman, let's be honest. And would you say the reason why you go from not region to region, because when you do play for a region, you do give it your all. It's not like you're thinking, oh, I've got to go play for them. But would you say, well, let's ask a different question. Why would you say you like to go to different regions? What's the reason for that? Is it because you get asked by a certain team and then you think, well, they don't play for Southern, so I've got to go and move, so I'm best change regions?
So this is no disrespect to Southern. I love Southern, and obviously I play for them more than anyone else by a long way. But I think my reason for leaving Southern to go to the Isle of Wight was simply I wanted a year of fun ball, and I went and played with a very good friend, Sean Newton. We had the worst interregional. It's. I think if you ask Sean Newton to show you, he's still got the scorecard. It's unreal. I think we got faded about 3 times, beaten away. We were horrendous. I mean, it was back in the days when we got too drunk to play in reality in the regionals. But we'd done well until then in the qualifying. We team 2, but it was just one of those weekends. It was horrendous. It was one of those give up ball type weekends, and it was quite embarrassing, obviously. But the main reason to go there was to have fun with some friends, and it just didn't work out there. And then the other regional moves have all been for what I believe are good reasons.
Yeah.
When I went to play for West Mids, I was asked by Hervé and Jerome, etc., to go and have a good crack at the Euro Cup, and it didn't work out. But it was something I wanted to do, and if I could play club ball down there and regionally up there, club ball up there and regionally down there, I would have done that. I would have stayed. But the way the rules are in the Southern is you've got to be affiliated to a club in the Southern and play that. So sadly, I had to go completely lock, stock and barrel. It's not ideal. And then obviously the other one is Chiltern, who I would say possibly 60% of my friends in the game play in Chiltern, and I just enjoy the company of a lot of people there. My main reason for playing ball now is to enjoy it, and I enjoy it best when I'm playing with good players who are also very good friends.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that. I do agree with that. I mean, I must admit, I think as much as I love playing for Southern, and my reasons for leaving were because I wanted to step up. Basically, I felt like my game was at a good level, but it could be even better. So I wanted to, and that was mainly my reason for leaving Southern, because I feel like Southern sometimes get stuck in their ways a little bit, not in a disrespectful way, but it can feel like that sometimes. So I just wanted to have a change. And I guess when you were playing, because obviously you played for Baldock Town as well, didn't you? Before, was it Baldock you played, or was it Sports Bar? Who did you?
No, it was Baldock, yeah. Which I'm rejoining, hot off the press.
That is true. That is true. But I think to play with that standard of player, and also to play with one of my best mates, Sean, as well, just was too appealing for me. And I know the travelling can be a proper pain in the bum, but I think it's worth it for the reasons you said: good players and good friends. So
yeah, I mean, I would suggest some of my best friends are in Chiltern in the game. There's not a day go by where I don't get some sort of annoying message from Lewis. I get the odd message from Matt when he's had a beer. Phil will send me something every now and then. They're just good people. Johnny Saw, they're all good people who, I've got a lot of time for. And
they're willing to travel to play in the biggest tournaments. You find that a lot, apart from the odd couple, a lot of the Southern players stay in Southern, don't they? They don't really venture out. So if you want to make a go of it in national events and stuff, it's very difficult to do that. So that's why
Southern is a very established region, probably one of the most established regions, and rightly so. It was around at the birth of the game, and it always had a large membership with a lot of clubs. So especially during the 80s, probably had no real reason to travel that much.
Yeah.
Mum and Dad did, but on the whole, you could get away playing a very good level of tournament, and it even attracted most people into the region. Norfolk Square regularly came and played in Southern.
Ness and that were part of the Wanderers, weren't they? And Southampton City and all that. So
and the Dove, you had the Dove that they sort of did a good Euro Cup go with Ness and Frank Britt and Philippe Larosse and people like that playing there. So it was, but yeah, like you, I felt that I had to travel out just to better my game, and that's probably the sole reason, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely agree. So, you just said then that you're joining Baldock Town, so you're becoming a Chiltern member again. Was that? Did you think about did you want to stay in Southern or change region, or was it purely Chiltern or nowhere? Did you have any offers from London or Kent or anything like that?
I mean, I've joked about London for years. I think every year I tell Vince I look good in red, and I know Baz always likes it as well. But I always said when I left, I could only play in Chiltern a year because then I stopped playing. But I said when I left, that's where I want to play. When I can come back, I will come back. And obviously, I had Ethan. He's going to be 2 in a couple of weeks, and so he's a bit more settled. So it's not the young newborn anymore, which does impact a lot on your ability to play, and it's not fair on the family, etc. But I'm happy to do the miles to get up there again. And it was basically came down to an amazingly probably just a 5-minute chat with Lewis, who sort of, I don't even know who suggested it, whether it was me or him, but I said, it might have been me. I might have said, do you fancy playing? But basically throughout lockdown, I was watching the online stuff, the shooting comps, and anything that was streamed. And I was starting to get that little itch to play again, the little bug. And I thought, I've had 4 years, and I'll have 4 years by next year, but it's time to play again. And I had a 5-minute chat, I think, with Lewis, and we sort of suggested, why don't we go regionally? Jamie, because he's a teacher, never plays.
Sorry, mate. Sorry to interrupt. I know it's not easy. I was going to say, what's your what are you thinking for this year then? Is it just literally purely the odd competition in terms of regional and opens, and that's about it for now?
Yeah, and the regionals is my dead priority. I'd like to play a couple of money comps. I'm hoping to play your thing in the doubles I'm playing with Callum if it goes ahead. I played with Callum. I was at Hampshire Rose a little bit for a while. Played with him a few times there. He's a very good player. I know he's stepped up since I've stopped playing as well, which I expected. You could see the talent there, and obviously I've got utmost respect for his dad. He's lucky that he's got his Steve's genes in him. Shoots a bit better than Steve, but but there you go.
So who is your regional team then? Who are you playing with in 2021?
So Jamie Lewis and Adam Sullivan.
Oh yeah, so okay, yep. So that's good. So Jamie can get the time off. Well, he's a teacher, isn't he? So
like I said, he never plays regionals, and I've been a couple of times I tried to get him in the past, but because he's a teacher and going back to school in September, but sort of suggested it, and he was okay with it. So I think maybe the location this time is a little bit easier for him to get to. So that might have been a factor. He can probably get back on the Sunday night, whereas down here, when it was at Hayling, he probably couldn't get back or stay an extra day, which he couldn't do. So,
okay, that's cool. That's a good team. Good team. I look forward to playing against you actually. So let's move on a little bit away from say your time playing and things like that. What do you think at the moment with like the rankings? Obviously, you've been away for 4 years. The last year you played would have been Grand Prix still, or like the 2 qualifiers in the top 8. What's your thoughts on like rankings and selection compared to say the Grand Prix that you remember?
I mean, when they were mooted, they were coming in. I was quite vocal in being against them. Not because I quite like rankings. It's a good idea in that you score points individually. So I understand that. My issue solely comes down to who has the final say. Who in this country, in my eyes, is qualified enough to come in, is A, qualified enough to come in and say that person, and B, isn't going to have a small amount of bias, whether they believe it or not, or whether they realise it or not. Everyone's got their views of everyone in this country. It's such a close-knit sport, especially around those top-level players. everyone has their opinions. We've all sat there and we drunk on a trip away, and we're all chatting about how good he is, how good. People always have different views of, oh no, I've fannied him and he always got a bad. I played with him, he had a bad. It's very sort of subjective, and I find unless you were to get someone in from outside, who again we're not going to be able to afford to pay or come over and make those judgments. I just think it's always going to be a little bit flawed on that part, the selection part. I mean, there was a year where criminally Sean should definitely have made it, and for whatever reason he wasn't picked, and I just find it phenomenal. It makes a bit of a mockery of what he's done over the season. So
yeah,
I'm not promising, I'm not having a dig at anyone, and it also, I always, from looking from the outside in at that point, there was a lack of transparency about who was getting picked and why, and I don't know. So I'm not really a fan, but I get the point scoring. That to me makes sense. If you can play with different teams and individually you're performing, then yeah.
I know, I totally agree. I think most people agree with that, actually. Most people I talk to, especially those that play a lot of pétanque, they're in agreement that there's no issues with the rankings, with points being scored, because that tells you everything you need to know. The problem is the people, the person making a selection based on not enough data, really, just result data, not performance data. And I think that's where the issue lies. And I came into the game at the back end of when the Grand Prix were pretty good, like a lot of teams. I remember playing with Graham Dalton, Sarah Huntley and Nick Baxter. What a team that is. Imagine that as a team, eh? And I was only young, and I remember...
None of you were fit to wear Galt shirt. Galt is a legend.
And we played a lot. Obviously, it was Lymington, Spa. I think there was Detlin was one of the places. And I remember there being 70 odd teams there. It wasn't like, people still talked about the heyday of the 90s back then, but there were still 70 plus teams. And when I qualified in 2017, there was 15 teams entered a 2 qualifier tournament with a finals day, and my team did crap and then managed to make the top 8 and then win and that's not sustainable, is it? That's not really, that doesn't make you the best team over the series.
No.
So that's why. I mean, the ranking
I understand the change. I get that. I mean, one of the things that I quite often see thrown in there is under the old system, you could more or less pick your way to the top by picking a team, because you would self-arrange between you. But then I see these ranking, but people are still effectively picking who they're going to play with. They're still choosing. And you could argue you can be even more tactical about it and pick certain people for certain comps, or you could even maybe get better results because of being able to pick a few different through the year. I know you still got singles involved, etc. as well, but that's just one argument, I think. There's no perfect formula, and
no, absolutely
need to change it.
There's pros and cons to everything, but I think the biggest con is the selection, and I think we're probably a lot of people are in agreement that the selection just isn't fair, really, regardless if someone thinks it's fair. It rarely is. But I like what you said earlier about, I like Grand Prix series because, like I say, from what I remember, there were so many teams. It was so enjoyable. And looking at your rankings the day before your tournament and what you have to do just makes it a little bit more exciting. But also the fact that you said that you qualified as a 3 and you got to select your 4th. Now, that's a better way of selection because the 3 that have qualified are in a unanimous decision of who they want to play with them. I think that's a better way. Would you not agree with that? That just seems sensible to me.
Yeah, I mean, we took Frank. I was overruled. I wanted to take Simon Bird, but I think the argument there was maybe Marcus wasn't such an out-and-out pointer. I think they wanted Frank, who at the time was, the top 2 pointers in the country. Yeah. But I argued we could have Birdie, and then you've got that shooting backup as well. I know at the time you had me and Bond in, and even Marcus can hit a few ball, So, but selecting that 4th player, whereas you've gone for it, the only problem you've got there is then when you get to wherever you're going, you've got the problem we had, which is when someone has to step out, you probably have that mental battle. Whereas the year I played with Matt and Phil and Jamie, we were all in and out, Yeah. I mean, for me, Matt would have to play every time, but even he stepped out a couple of times, So,
yeah, I do think togetherness and camaraderie is overlooked somewhat when it comes to selection from certain people. I don't think we realise just how important it is to be a team, togetherness, playing with selecting a team based on individuals doesn't. In my
no.
opinion,
I mean, for me, it's probably my strongest point is my ability to get on and recognise when I'm, you know, I talked about it earlier where at the Worlds when I probably didn't accept I was playing badly, but now I think it's something that's my strength. I think anyone who's played with me knows I'm quite nice to play with. I don't moan. I don't, you know, I'm supportive. It's but yeah, and it is going back to playing with people. Again, Lewis is another one. He's great to play with now. I wouldn't like to have played with him when he was 15, but he's great to play with now. He's a great, like say, a team player. He just wants what's best for the team.
I know for Euro Cup just how much of a team player he is, because not a lot of people accept what he does, his role for the team. Because let's be honest, his role for the team for Balled Up Town isn't necessarily. This sounds, I don't know how to put this nicely, but he's not necessarily a first team player, if that makes sense. But what he gives to the team is more than just playing, if that makes sense. He's so good for the team, and I didn't realise it until I joined Balled Up Town just how valuable he was for the team. So little big up there for Lewis. Well,
the last year I was in Chiltern, we qualified Chiltern 1 resurvey and myself, and Hervé couldn't do one of the qualifying days, and he just said, I've jacked up Lewis to come and stand in for us. And I thought, brilliant, we've lost our pointer, and we're getting a middle shooter, really, you know, to come in. And we were unreal that day. We fannied Ross, Sam and Adam in 4 ends, and I think at the time they were top level, you know, and we played brilliantly. And he was happy to step in anywhere. He said, look, I'll start pointing. And then later on he said, I'll have a shoot. We had a shot, and, you know, it's just worked well, you know. So
the Jordan Henderson.
That's Jamie all over.
The Jordan Henderson of ball, there he is. Or Derek Cow, I don't know which one he is. So there's another thing. I don't know if you want to talk about this, but I've added it to the list of questions. The words elite player. Now, you had a little say on Facebook about this, but obviously it's a lot easier to convey your message face to face. So what's your view on it? I know Tony Gates brought it up. Saying that it's a little bit, you know, there's a bit of disparity there between elite players and non-elite players, so to speak. But I mean, do you have a issue with it?
I have a problem with the term. I recognise there are top level players. What I don't like is the term elite, because I think it just creates division. This is a fine line, because this sport needs to grow again. Numbers wise, comps wise, we're only going to create a divide if we start labelling, you know, it's already in danger of some players sort of getting half good, never being able to attract someone better to play with, and then thinking, well, what's the point of me trying? You know, I've seen many good players over the years who could probably play a much higher level, never really get that opportunity, and they lose interest. And it's a shame, because they could definitely play at a high level. And it's the term. It isn't anything talking. I recognise there's going to be a higher level. That's the same in any sport. There's always going to be better people. But I'm just very wary that division isn't created, or even people. You know, it's hard to say. Because the other thing is, I'm not having a pop at anyone.
No, absolutely not. No.
I know that Martin was sort of tried to quiz me on it in his answers, and I wasn't. He was starting to try to justify, and he was getting defensive about the ranking, and that's not my problem. The system's not my problem. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about just the term elite. I don't think it should be used. That's all. You know.
Yeah. No. I get what you're saying. No, it's it's a very difficult one to me personally. I don't care what anyone says. Like, if someone wants to call it that, they want to call it top level, novice, beginner, international. At the end of the day,
ultimately you're going to get called something, aren't you?
Yeah, and at the end of the day, I'm not a fan of like labels either. But there is always going to be labels. That's just a fact of life. But yeah, I just I do feel what you said there about those middle order players, those players that are good enough but don't get the chance to play. I know full well that for me to have got better, I had to talk to people and want to talk to people and ask people to play. And unless you put your head above the parapet and put yourself out there, you're never gonna get that opportunity. So my only thing to people watching this that believe that they deserve a chance is ask people. If you ask Roland Jones, if you ask Scott Ashby, if you ask Sean Prendergast, if you ask whoever, Jack Blows, whoever, they will honestly 9 times out of 10 they won't say no. They'll say, yeah, absolutely, we'll play something together. So I think in that respect, people need to also put themselves out as well. So that's another thing for that. But yeah, so we're coming to the end now anyway. So it's been really nice talking to you, Ben. I've enjoyed it. I mean, we've played together a few times. I don't think we've ever lost together. Can we put that on record? We ever lost
doubles, certainly. We haven't.
No, yeah, doubles, certainly not. But I'm looking forward to seeing you back on the piece. Not just for your ball skills, but because you're just a great bloke. And I think everyone recognises the character you are and how nice you are. And you're one thing, I don't want to make this into I love you, Ben Treend, but I'm going to, is that you bring like just a bit of warmth to the game. And one thing we all want to see when you're back is the fucking caterpillar, all right? And I've just swore there, and I don't know why I swore, because it's been going great, but I want to see the caterpillar on your first day back, right? All right? And I think everyone does.
I'm not doing it on gravel again. I'm not doing it I'm not in shorts. Oh, God. I was picking grit out my knee for about a week.
That was amazing when you did that. What was that, Harrow, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'd had a few beers. I was playing with Miles. We'd had a few drinks. We were out, but we were having a laugh.
That was good. But anyway, right, Ben, we're going to leave it there. I enjoyed that with you, mate. So hopefully people will watch and enjoy it as well. So cheers for coming on, Ben, and I'll speak to you later.
See you in the new year.
Bye, mate. Bye.